All right, welcome again. So you jump from a room to another, but it's still me. Um, I'm happy to run this closing keynote, and the topic of today is mastering strategy execution. Um, there is a lot we say about OKRs, and sometimes we can get lost in the execution of it. And what I wanted through that session is to go a level higher and think about what's the purpose of all that and why we do what we do and how can we do it better. So let me start with a little story. Do you remember these phones? They are all from the same brand, a very famous brand, Nokia. At some point, they were the worldwide leader in the phone industry. They were actually a pioneer when it comes to mobile innovation. And then suddenly they were out of the market. And probably that today you don't have a Nokia. A lot of people think that it was a problem of strategy. Well, it's wrong. It was not strategy. It was execution. Because they were the first in mobile innovation, they were very well aware about the software revolution and they were working on it and investing heavily on it. Actually, what made them slow to move to the new era was execution. They had a very siloed organization. They had political battles around what to do, what not to do. Like, for example, their OS, they didn't succeed to decide fast enough which OS to invest in and where to put the energy. They were slow to recruit the right competencies, like user experience and user interface, to develop the experience that people were expecting. And as a result, they were surpassed by the competition. So it was not strategy, it was execution. In parallel to that, while other actors moved very fast. So Nokia came from becoming the leader to actually being sold for 20, 50 times less than their initial valuation to Microsoft back in the early 2000s. In parallel to that, and you probably recognize this man, is Steve Jobs, who was CEO of Apple and was the person who was leading Apple at the moment they launched the iPhone, had a very different approach. And it was also linked to executions. When he joined Apple back in 1997, he actually reduced from 350 products to 4 products. He reduced from 10 P&Ls to 1 P&L. He removed a lot of organizational and management layers, and he facilitated direct communication between the decision makers and the doers, empowering the doers to be close to the action, the decision, and the strategic aspect of execution. And so the thing is that today, a lot of organizations, in a way, are between, well, an Apple of the time and a Nokia of the time, But actually, a majority fail in executing their strategy because of a poor execution. And they fail why? Because, well, there are a lot of changes, internal changes, external changes. You can see the AI trend. It can be about international restructuration. It can be about a competition move. It can be many things. But so it becomes very critical for organizations to be able to adapt and execute fast to these changes. If they do, then they will outperform their peers. So it's not solely about, hey, we implement our strategy. It's about us being relevant in the future. It's about us being able to execute our vision and our goals. Executing fast is key for strategy. Strategy without execution doesn't have any relevance. And so that's why creating a bridge between these two is so critical, and your roles in your organization is so critical and so valuable. At OKRmentors, we've been bringing together a collective of experts. Many of them you've heard today or you've seen, and you can, of course, get to know more of them. We've supported more than 500 companies. We've trained more than 5,000 leaders and coached more than 50,000 hours. Top companies in top industries around the world. And we all have the same questions around what are the dimensions, what are the key elements that will drive the success of a strategy execution, irrespective of the company size, the company industry, the company geography, and their culture. What are these dimensions that, whatever is the organization, are going to be relevant to track and to look into? And for the last 9 months, we've met with 15 of them on a regular basis to dive into that topic. And that's what I'm going to share with you today. 5 dimensions to master strategy execution. The first one is alignment. So the situation you don't want to be into is to have priorities that are unclear or inconsistently defined, and very little alignment between teams. Often when organizations reach out for an OKR implementation, is that they're in a situation very close to that. Where you want to go is having very clear strategic priorities fully aligned across teams, and where everyone understands how their work contributes to broader goals. When you're there across the full organization, then you've done a good job in improving and excelling at strategy execution. The second one is execute. So once the priorities are aligned and clear for everyone, well, you still need to get things done, right? And so when we see organization with little maturity in strategy execution, we see that they don't have really a structure for goal execution. Or the ownership is also unsure, and there is inconsistent progress tracking. People are not exactly sure how things are going. While an organization that excels at strategy execution has a very clear ownership, everyone knows what they're expected to do, the value is measured in a continuous manner, and leadership is consistently supporting the teams to address blockers and challenges. That's the second dimension. The third one is improve. So basically, in many organizations that we work with in the beginning, we realize there is no formal learning processes. Maybe they have in some areas of the organization where Agile is implemented, but generally, this is not something that is formalized. And teams rarely evolve their goals based on past performance. Every time it feels we start from scratch. While where you want to be is to have continuous improvement embedded across the organization, where teams systematically review their goals, understand what happened with them, and look at the optimal way to deliver value based on the new reality they are into, based on the learning of what happened internally and externally. The fourth one is scale. So, of course, the process requires alignment, execution, improvement, but for organization of larger size, you need to do it at a certain scale. And so what we see is that organizations with little maturity have an execution practices that vary widely across teams. Yes, you need to be able to adapt the practices depending on the nature and the typology of the team, but it should be harmonized and at least in some way synchronized. And there is little to no training or tools to support them. The scaling processes are very informal, meaning this is not controlled. Who use which practices, why? In a case of an organization that is very mature and advanced in strategy execution, they have a fully scalable execution framework, and it might be centralized or decentralized or hybrid, but the processes are clear, are aligned, there are robust tools and ongoing training to sustain growth and scalability. Make sure everyone has the right competence and assets to be able to perform at their best. And the last dimension is empower. Because as we've discussed all day long, this is about culture, this is about mindset, this is about attitude. It's not just process and tools. And so many organizations will tend to underestimate the importance of this dimension. And they have minimal emphasis on achieving outcomes or using data to measure impact. So they are not really data-driven. Leadership rarely participate and listen to teams' input. While where you want to be is a culture where teams are fully empowered, where they are value-oriented, think outcome-oriented, where they are data-driven at all levels, and where leadership fosters innovation and accountability. Think about fail fast, learn fast. So all of this together, they give you a comprehensive approach towards strategic execution excellence. On one hand, you have the three processes: align, execute, improve. On the others, you have the two enablers and amplifiers. And guess what? You can recognize this cycle. You've been working with OKRs certainly for some time. Well, this is what OKRs well implemented can enable, because they allow you to move from a long-term horizon of 5 to 20 years to something that you do on a day-to-day, leveraging the objectives and the key results as outcomes, as data, measurable results. And through the cadence, they allow you to measure and learn on a continuous basis. So yes, OKRs are a key enabler of optimum strategy execution. And we've seen that in our global state of OKRs that we run in 2023. We asked to 460 leaders around the world, companies, how is their strategic execution and OKR practice going? And we could see that actually the ones that perform the best in OKRs are the ones that perform the best in general in their business. And we could see that still there is almost half of the organization that face challenges with implementing OKRs properly. And that's really where is our mission at OKRmentors, is to be able to help move that figure the lowest possible. And so here are some key practices from overachievers that comes from our report and comes from 450 plus leaders. They have short cycles. So they opt for quarterly cycles. They engage in regular weekly or bi-weekly check-ins so that the cadence is ongoing and that's part of the day-to-day. They involve larger teams for the OKR implementation, meaning, yes, there is an OKR lead, but there is also people involved potentially from communication, from HR, a community of practice, etc., etc. They also integrate OKRs into the existing company processes. So it's not something that comes on top, it's something that is integrated with planning, prioritization, evaluation, budgeting, etc., etc. And then they also think about the user experience. They have a rationalized and user-friendly tool stack to manage and track OKR progress and the link with the activity and initiatives. Last but not least, they make sure everyone are empowered and understand why they are doing what they are doing, how OKRs can help them, and basically be able to do that in an effective manner. So these are the top best practices there. And so as I close this keynote, I want to also share that it's not only execution, right? You need both. So you need strategy without tactics is making you go very slow. But if you have tactics without strategy, is noise before defeat. So it's important to have a clear strategy, articulate it well, and then from there, deliver. And I have a question for you. Is your strategy execution in good shape? If you're curious to know your strategy execution maturity, well, learn that our think tanks has worked for the last 9 months on a maturity model and a maturity assessment. And basically, there are 5 dimensions. For each of them, you get a score. And based on that, you can get a view of your strategy execution maturity and recommendations on things that you can do to improve. We are finalizing it now, but we can already share with you in the chat the page where, if you're interested, you can put your email, and whenever we're ready, we'll send it to you first. So I'm closing on these words. I guess that from there, we will be able to move on to Q&A. I will stop sharing my screen, come back to the chat, and check out the questions that you have for me. All right. And I see also that I'm past the time and we should move to the OKR awards. But big question after today. Most ISO is more or less cascading, which is more or less in 2 silos. The biggest challenge in my opinion is number 1, align. Those using the OKR framework need to find a way to align. Yeah, that's a very fair point. I guess that could be a topic of a panel, how to align. And I think here shared OKR are a good point to integrate in the OKR cycle. A phase for alignment is very important. and to have an integrated view where everyone can see what everyone is doing in terms of OKRs, so that we can basically share it and support each other. That's a short answer for a question that deserves a much longer answer, but I suggest to not make you wait much longer. We've been mentioning it all day, the OKR Awards. It's in the other session. If you have any question, any comment, any feedback, I'm super curious. Feel welcome to reach out to me here or on LinkedIn, and we can continue the conversation.